Michael Gove is a British politician who serves as the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities and Minister for Intergovernmental Relations in the UK government. He is also the Member of Parliament for Surrey Heath, a constituency in southeast England. He has been in this role since 2005. As the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, Michael Gove is responsible for overseeing the government's strategy to close the gap between rich and poor parts of the country. He aims to improve services such as education, broadband and transport, and to shift both money and power into the hands of working people. He is also in charge of intergovernmental relations, which means he works with the devolved administrations of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland on matters of common interest. Michael Gove has held several other positions in the government since 2010. He was the Secretary of State for Education from 2010 to 2014, where he introduced major reforms to the curriculum, exams and school accountability. He was then the government chief whip from 2014 to 2015, where he managed the Conservative Party's parliamentary business. He became the Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice from 2015 to 2016, where he advocated for prison reform and leaving the European Union. He then served as the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs from 2017 to 2019, where he championed animal welfare and environmental protection. He was also the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and Minister for the Cabinet Office from 2019 to 2021, where he coordinated the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and Brexit. Before entering politics, Michael Gove was a journalist. He worked as a reporter for various newspapers and television channels, and was later an assistant editor of The Times. He was educated at Robert Gordon's College in Aberdeen and Lady Margaret Hall at Oxford University. He is married and has 2 children. Labour's plan to splurge on voting rights entails extending the franchise to millions of foreign nationals who live and work in the UK, as well as lowering the voting age to 16. The party argues that this would strengthen democracy and give a voice to those who contribute to society and pay taxes. However, the plan is controversial because it could potentially change the outcome of future elections and undermine the sovereignty of the British people. Critics accuse Labour of trying to rig the electorate in their favour or to reverse Brexit by stealth. They also question the logic of giving voting rights to non-citizens who have not sworn allegiance to the UK or its values. In this section, we will analyse how Michael Gove slams Labour's plan to splurge on voting rights and what arguments he uses to criticise it. Michael Gove is the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and a prominent figure in the Conservative Party. He is also a staunch supporter of Brexit and has been vocal about his opposition to Labour's proposal to hold a second referendum on the UK's membership in the EU. One of the main points that Gove makes against Labour's plan is that it would enfranchise 2 million EU nationals who currently live in the UK but are not eligible to vote in general elections or referendums. Gove argues that this would be unfair and undemocratic, as it would change the rules of the game and give an advantage to the Remain side. He compares it to a rugby league final, where one team suddenly decides to play rugby union instead and bring 2 extra players onto the field. Gove also accuses Labour of lacking faith in UK democracy and sovereignty, as he claims that their plan would undermine the outcome of the 2016 referendum, where a majority of British voters chose to leave the EU. He says that Labour is trying to fiddle a second referendum in favour of Remain by proposing to enfranchise EU nationals, who are more likely to vote against Brexit. He suggests that Labour is not respecting the will of the people and is instead pandering to the interests of London elites who do not understand the problems faced by people in other parts of the country.